Hey everyone, today we are going to be taking a look at one of these LG washing machines, specifically addressing the issue of having foam, soapy foam, spill out the back of the washing machine onto your floor. So the reason for it is as follows. The washing machine needs a way to vent out to the air here so that it's not a completely sealed environment inside. It needs to be able to breathe during the wash cycle. In order to do this, you obviously need to have a hole coming out to the outside. So what there is there's a little opening at the top of the washing machine underneath this panel, and there's a poppet valve that prevents, or it's supposed to prevent, the foam from coming out. In the event that there's a lot of foam in your washing machine, when the foam goes up, that poppet valve is supposed to close. And then when the foam goes away, that poppet valve opens again, allowing the internals of the washing machine to breathe. What ends up happening is that poppet valve can get a little dirty over time, preventing it from really going up and down all that much. So I'll show you what you need to do in order to be able to clean it, but also, as in my case, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes the poppet valve just goes bad, there's something wrong with the interface, it's just not working out no matter how many times you clean it or try to grease it. And in that case, I came up with an alternative and foolproof solution that I think you'll like. The first step, of course, is to open up the top of this washing machine. What I'm going to use is a stubby, meaning a short Phillips screwdriver. This is a number 2 Phillips, meaning it's not the smallest size, it's the next one up, the standard size. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove 2 screws, one over here and one over there. There are 2 screws, one on top of the other. I'm going to remove the lower one of the 2. Let me show you. It's this one right over here. There's 2 of them, one on this side and one on the other side. Okay, once those screws are loosened, we are going to push this panel back. I'm going to keep my fingers over them though, to make sure that those screws don't come falling down behind the washing machine. Here we go. That's it. Then now we lift up. Okay, now let's take a look as to what is going on inside over here. What we have is the main drum of the washing machine right over here. And if we look over to this side, what we have is the vent. Underneath this black rubber hose, there is the poppet valve that we were talking about just a little bit earlier. And then there's kind of an accordion flexible sleeve here that usually is connected just to a plastic piece over here in the back, but I have it modified. We'll talk about that in a minute. So first what I'll do is I'll show you this little poppet valve here, because a lot of times that's all you need to do is you need to just clean up that poppet valve, maybe give it a little bit of a light oil or grease, not too much though, because of course you have clothes in that washing machine. But anyway, we'll loosen this clamp up over here, and then you can pull this right up. Okay, and there is our poppet valve. You're going to pull that out. If it doesn't want to come out, you can grab it with a paper towel. Okay, let's try that again. Sometimes it's a little slippery. Okay, this one still doesn't want to come out. I'm going to use another screwdriver. This one's a flat blade. And to just help ease it up. There we go. Good. So here's the poppet valve. All it does is it seals off that vent when there's water coming. Okay, here's that vent that I'm referring to. Obviously you can see it's not the prettiest thing to look at anymore, but the poppet valve itself, the stem of that poppet valve, if you think of it as a mushroom, the stem of it sits in that middle cylindrical area. That is just where it slides up and down. The area around it is where the air is allowed to go. So usually there's air moving through between that vent here into this rubber tube and out the back. Now, when the foam comes up, this poppet valve is supposed to lift upwards until it presses against that rubber tube, this rubber hose like that. You can kind of imagine it pressing against it right over here. but it obviously has to be able to move freely. If it can't move freely, it doesn't work. So one thing you can always do is clean this stem up over here, which honestly is not that dirty. Clean it up in the inside over here, that little hole as well. And it doesn't hurt to give the whole thing a clean. That is usually, or frequently, enough on all we need to get it working again. However, sometimes you might need to add a little oil to it to further help it along. And sometimes, no matter what you do, it just doesn't work. And time again, you end up with water behind your washing machine. Well, what do you do then? Look at better ways or better greases for your pop valve. I think there's a better solution. Well, my thought was, you have this foam that ends up coming out the back of the washing machine and onto the floor. But right over here is the drain. Well, why not just have a second drain hose go into that drain? That way, if you ever do have too much foam in your washing machine and it comes up, it doesn't really matter if this pop-up valve is working or not. Instead of dump it onto the floor, just let it dump over into your drain and you're done. And that's what I did here. So, what you see here, one of these is an original hose, and one of these is the secondary hose that I just got off of probably either Amazon or went to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of those stores. What I did here is I disconnected this rubber hose from going to that plastic piece that used to be right in here. Took out the plastic piece, of course, and then connected this secondary hose directly to this one. What I did was I used a couple of hose clamps, and I used a small piece of clear tubing. It doesn't have to be clear, of course. Used a small piece of tubing in the middle to make the connection. I'll show it to you. There it is. This is just a small piece of tube that I had lying around. Here's the length. It's approximately that long. I'll give you the dimensions in a second. And that's all there is to it. I just cut a piece of tube to be able to slide both sides one on the other to make a little coupler. And that way, I have that poppet valve still in there. And if the foam comes up, I don't really care. It goes up past the poppet valve, through this black hose, through this little coupler that we made, and out down into the drain over there. Let me give you the dimensions for this little coupler that I made. Alright, so the outer diameter is approximately 1.5 inches. That's 1.5 inches. And the length that I end up using, and it doesn't have to be this long exactly, is about 2 inches. So if you have a 1.5 inch diameter tube by a length of around 2 inches, you'll be good. If it's a little bit shorter, will it work? Yeah, it'll work. If it's a little longer, will it work? Yes, it'll still work. But the key is this outer diameter. That you want to be pretty close to being 1.5. Otherwise, it might be a little hard to get these tubes and hoses to stay on with a nice tight fit. But 1.5 seems to work nicely. If you're wondering what about the inner diameter or the inside opening, that's not that important. There's just air going through there and occasionally foam. Okay, I'll just quickly reassemble this now. And after that, I'll put the top of the washing machine back on, just so you see how it comes on. And that's about it. Very simple. This is just a little clamp. You can see it fits into a little groove right over there. Do make sure it's down all the way, so it's fully secured. And tighten it up. One quick tip that I'll mention is when you put the clamp on, always make sure that the drive side of the screw is facing you, because it's much easier to have my screwdriver going this way than if I was to face it the other way around and having to do something like this. Okay, that's about all there is to it. After this, you just put the top on, tighten those screws back up, and you're done. So if you liked that video, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. And leave a comment so I know what you liked or what you didn't like, or what you'd want to see next time. Thanks, I'll see you again soon. Bye.